From the studios of Clean Fuels Alliance America, this is the Better, Cleaner, Now podcast. Fascinating ideas and conversations in the world of biodiesel, renewable diesel, and sustainable aviation fuel. Now, here's your host, Scott Tremaine.
And welcome. Today, Clean Fuels Director of State Governmental Affairs, Jeff Earl, sits down with Gary Lewis, former president and CEO of Seaboard Energy, as they discuss the past, present, and future of biodiesel and Gary's retirement from Seaboard Energy.
Good morning, Gary. Thanks for being on the Better, Cleaner, Now podcast.
Good morning, Jeff. Glad to be here.
Well, it's a great honor to have you here. I've always looked up to you since joining Clean Fuels. I think I'm in year 3 now with the organization, and I've always appreciated your insight, the conversations that you and I have had, both on a professional and personal level. So this is a great honor for me to be able to sit down with you today and talk a little bit about your history, your background, how you got into biodiesel, and what maybe we can be looking forward to for this industry in the future. So thanks for being here.
No, my pleasure. And, I've sure enjoyed working with you, Jeff. Your enthusiasm and all that you've got going on, with your role at Clean Fuels is inspiring to me too. And it was always uplifting to visit with you about what you had in the works.
Well, I really appreciate that. And so I know kind of the, good and bad is, we're seeing you leave this industry after how many years were you in the biodiesel renewable fuel industry with Seaboard?
Yeah, so we started in about 2004, really looking at it. And 2005, we started to have our first product produced.
Yeah. Thanks, for your commitment to this industry. But I know the one thing that we want to maybe just hit right off the bat is we were all out in D.C. Recently with some governing board members, and you told this fascinating story about how you got into biodiesel. And one thing I've learned, working here at Clean Fuels is everyone has a kind of a unique story how they got into biodiesel, renewable diesel, how they got into this industry. And yours was just totally fascinating to me. I know others in the room at that dinner were really, really fascinated too. So want to get you on today, wanted you to, retell that story, because I think a lot of our listeners will really appreciate hearing this history, this pathway into biodiesel and renewable diesel. So can you take us back into that story, how it all started? I know you weren't always in the fuel industry. You were in the swine nutrition and animal science side of things. So I don't want to take all the thunder. I want you to tell your story. Take us down that road again one more time, if you don't mind.
Sure. So to give you a little background, I've been with Seaboard for almost 28 years. And Seaboard is really a ag-based company, and one of the divisions that I worked for was the Seaboard Foods Group, which we had, really integrated pork production, owning the farms, feed mills, the packing plant. And so over the years working for them, one of the responsibilities I took on was with my team, really marketing all of the byproduct. And one of the byproducts that we sold was choice white grease, pork fat. Mm-hmm. And back in 2004, we had a situation where we were selling our fat, and we had perfectly good fat, and we continued to get claims from certain customers, and it really aggravated us. And so at the time, the group, we all kind of brainstormed, what can we do different? Because this is not something we want to continue to do. And so we looked at different options of what we could do with our fat. And one of those was biodiesel. And so started to look into making biodiesel out of our choice white grease. Mm-hmm. And, started experimenting actually in my shop at home, seeing if we could make it. And, used a very crude formula that I found on the internet. And I don't think it would pass ASTM standards, but we did make the first biodiesel. And one of the things that I was very curious about is how dangerous it would be. Mm-hmm. And so I was doing experiments, trying to see, would this stuff explode or how fast would it burn? And it was kind of surprising, how safe biodiesel really is. And that was one of the things that later on was pretty key. But after we made a little bit, we started to look at options for, stepping into this industry. And the first thing we did, we took our very cleanest fat, which was our pork lard, and we established a relationship with Eastman Kodak in Batesville, Arkansas, and they started to go ahead and toll process the fat at the time. And at this time, it was really just Mel Davis and myself that were involved. And we were sending truckloads of pork lard over there, about 1 or 2 truckloads a week, made perfectly good biodiesel. Things were working well. So then the next step was, well, what about building our own plant? And so we put together a proposal to construct our own plant right by our pork processing plant in Guyman, Oklahoma. And that proposal was shot down 3 times, and the basis for that was, hey, you guys know nothing about the petroleum industry, and you've never, done anything like this. You're not chemical engineers. And so I really challenged my boss at the time, Rod Brenneman, what will it take to get this to go to corporate and for approval? And one of the things that he said is, biggest concern is how you're going to market the product. Mm-hmm. He says, if you can go get an offtake agreement for the first couple of years, then I will let this go forward. Yeah. So here we are sitting there saying, we've never produced the product, ourselves, and we're asking somebody for a couple-year offtake agreement. I thought the project was dead.
Yeah, that would be quite the sales pitch, right, to have to make. Like, hey, yeah, we know nothing about this, but we got it. We think it might be good. Yeah. Do you want it?
No, that's exactly right. And so at the time, I actually was going down the road, going to a farm with the assistant swine nutritionist, Craig Maloney, and I was telling him about my situation and kind of saying, and I think this is all over. He didn't say anything, but a couple weeks later, his dad, Bill Maloney, was the economic development person for the state of Oklahoma. He called me and he said, hey, Gary, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm at my office here in Kansas City. And he said, can you be down for a dinner in Oklahoma City by 5 o'clock? And I said, well, why would I need to do that? And he says, I think you're going to want to take this dinner. He says, I've arranged a meeting with Frank Love of the Love's Truck Stops. Uh-huh. And I told him your story. And I didn't realize he had heard the story, but his son told him. And he said, he'd like to hear what you have to pitch. So I said, yep, I'm walking to my truck right now. I'll be there by 5. Yeah. And anyway, had dinner with Frank Love and his right-hand man at the time, Steve Magnus, and gave the pitch. And long story short, they were very interested. And we set up a 2-year offtake agreement. And from there, took it back, sent it up to corporate. Our owner of the company, Steve Bresky, he and his team looked at it and really liked the idea. And so we got approval to build a plant in Guyman, Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. We built that and started in 2006 and made our first product in 2008. And started, marketing our biodiesel through Musket, which is a branch of the Loves Group. And they were using it in their truck stops and also marketing it to other people. So that was our real entry into the biodiesel world.
And it all started in your garage.
Well, that was pretty crude, but that was a kind of a proof of concept.
Yeah. And now how many gallons is Seaboard producing every year?
So, we've talked about the history of Seaboard getting into biodiesel, but today, we have the Guyman biodiesel plant, which produces 45 million gallons per year of biodiesel. Then we have the St. Joe biodiesel plant just north of Kansas City. That plant will produce between 30 and 33 million gallons of biodiesel a year. Then we have the Hugoton renewable diesel plant, which is in southwest Kansas, mm-hmm. which will produce 85 million gallons of renewable diesel per year. And then we're structured to where we can efficiently move our fuels by rail out to Madera, California. There in the Central Valley. And at that location, we can receive unit trains of biodiesel and renewable diesel. And then we put it in tanks, offload it in 16 hours, a full 110 cars. And then we have the ability with a 4-lane truck rack to distribute the fuel into trucks that are distributing it out into the Central Valley area.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to talk about it a little bit too. But, starting a project like a new biodiesel plant or a new renewable diesel plant, I know myself and Brad Shimmons and our friends at the Kansas City Soybean Board were at the Hugoton ribbon cutting. I lose track of time sometimes, but it wasn't here recently, and like you were out there, and it's just this is impressive. So, can you tell us a little bit more the backstory about how you got into biodiesel? See, this is a great opportunity for this company. Now let's get into renewable diesel, and now we got to go build a renewable diesel plant. How does that come about?
Yeah, so Seaboard, over time, we kind of got a saying there, let's find the new money. Okay. And that's opportunities where we have to make money that we're not today. And that's a real focus of ours. So getting into biodiesel originally was upgrading our animal fats into a higher value product. And we've just kind of kept that mindset all along. So did the Guyman plant, St. Joe opportunity came along. That plant had gone bankrupt, and we were able to buy it and get it up to nameplate capacity very quickly. We also took our wastewater, which has a lot of soluble, what they call BOD, very difficult to extract, but if you digest it in an anaerobic digester, you produce a lot of methane gas. So we got into renewable natural gas. Yeah. We're into that at basically all 3 of our plants. And then we've done that on our farms also, our pork farms. And then in the meantime, to supplement and improve our carbon intensity, we've been able to incorporate solar into our Hugoton plant and our Madera distribution center. So
you just continue to find those new opportunities to decarbonize yourselves too, because I'm sure those carbon scores help market your fuels as you're going into states like California that you want to sell your biodiesel renewable diesel into. The more steps that you guys take on at your different operations also helps your carbon intensity of your fuel. Is that correct?
That is correct. And, back to your original question of how did we get into the renewable diesel plant out there in Hugoton, which you came to the ribbon cutting, that was one, again, we're looking at where do we have competitive advantages. We felt like we had room for solar there. That would lower our CI. We had an opportunity to build a plant that could utilize a lot of the short-chain hydrocarbons and further decrease our carbon intensity as compared to a plant that's bringing hydrogen in from an outside plant. We make our own and are able to utilize those off gases. And then, moving it out to Madera, there was a competitive advantage there by moving it by unit trains. The other thing is we sit in the Hugoton area right in between a number of beef packing plants, and we feel it's very important that you size a plant for the amount of fat that's in the area. Yeah. And that was one of the other things that really led us to say, hey, we've been successful at these other plants. We got another opportunity to do a renewable diesel plant and, really capitalize on the same things that have made us more competitive in the industry than maybe other people are.
And I know that, you and I have talked about, the Hugoton plant and, with New Mexico, being the 4th state to approve a low carbon fuel standard, you guys are in a prime position to supply that state with the fuel they're going to need to help meet those carbon intensity reduction goals. And so I think that's another hopeful opportunity for you guys, and, moving forward with, getting more fuel out there. I mean, you guys are in a prime position right there, right?
Absolutely. And, as more states come on, I'm sure our marketing plan's going to adjust. And so some people may think, well, if you have that Madera facility, is that where you're going to take all your product? We'll take it there if it makes sense. But if we can move other people's product through that facility, that's fine. And we might take our product and move it to other locations such as New Mexico, which is very close, you know, to both our Guyman and Hugoton plants.
And we always talk about, these facilities being in rural areas and the impact that they have on rural economies. And so Seaboard is providing well-paying jobs in these rural areas where there may not be a large industry there to provide this economic impact. And so I know you guys are very proud of that. The employees that you guys have, they are getting great opportunities in an industry, that's going to be around for a long time. But, talk about the impact that you guys have on the local economies in these rural areas.
Yeah, so we'll just use Hugoton as an example. That was a cellulosic ethanol plant that was constructed by Abengoa that did not work, and so this plant was shut down. We were able to come in the area, and we've been in the Hugoton area with our pork production for probably close to 30 years. And so people knew us. They knew they could trust us, and we were able to buy that plant, add the greenfield hydrogen plant, renewable diesel unit, and really bring back a pillar of that community back into operation. And so, there's probably one of the highlights of my career is every time I sit there and I look at what Clean Fuels has done to develop these opportunities, what Seaboard has done to support these projects, and you look at all the people that we have employed with excellent jobs. Yeah, it really makes you feel good.
Yeah, that's great to hear, and so I mean, this has been a definite change in, I guess, Seaboard. I mean, like you said, they were more on the animal nutrition side and, doing other things. And now they're in the petroleum business and have been for a number of years now, you leading that. So, it definitely shows the growth of this industry in a short period of time, relatively. I mean, we were Clean Fuels, formerly in MBB's, only been around 30 years. And now we're seeing just remarkable growth in the industry. Obviously, a lot of, positives to come there are obviously going to be some obstacles in the way along those ways, but we're continuing to see just great opportunities for this renewable fuel all across the country. I know you guys are involved in a lot of these discussions all across the country and many states on how can we get this product into different sectors. We're talking about sustainable aviation fuel, marine, rail. These are all industries now that are becoming a lot more interested in our fuels, and I'm sure you guys are seeing that as well on your side at Seaboard.
Yes, no, this has been just a tremendous industry to be involved with. My background being more ag, which is a very mature industry. Yeah. It was very inspiring, in 2005, 6, 7, to watch what, at the time, the National Biodiesel Board was doing, which is now Clean Fuels Alliance America. And that was a key thing. Had you guys not been doing what you did on a legislative front, none of this would have happened. And so I do appreciate everything that was done by the National Biodiesel Board to get the dollar blenders tax credit. That was a huge change and was really the thing that got us over the hump to move forward in this industry. And it's just been tremendous to be involved in a new growing industry, as you indicated. Yeah. And I think we're still at the beginning of things.
This is the Better, Cleaner, Now podcast.
And we're back. This is Jeff Earl, Director of State Government Affairs with Clean Fuels, and with me today is Gary Lewis, the former President and CEO of Seaboard Energy, talking with us today about his history into biodiesel and where things are going. And so I know, Gary, right before we cut there to break, we were kind of talking about what the future may hold and some of the things that have helped this industry for the past 30 years. And a lot of it is policy. That's one of the things that, I've worked with Seaboard on some of our things. And so we do know that, policy is a big driver of this industry, but we also are seeing other drivers of this industry. We're seeing, we have PepsiCo now as a member of Clean Fuels and their interest in using biodiesel, renewable diesel as a technology that they can deploy into many of their aspects of their fleets. And so are you seeing this increase? Is it because of policy, or is there other drivers of this industry that are out there that are really contributing to more biodiesel or renewable diesel in the market?
Well, there's no question that behind a lot of the use, there's some policy at some sector of the supply chain that is requiring people to monitor their carbon emissions and reduce it. But it is really hitting us from multiple fronts. We've got state policy, federal policy. We've got more international policy. One of the things that we actually just saw here in the last month is Seaboard is owns and charters a number of ships, and we move a lot of products around the world. And all of a sudden, we started to see where we had a requirement to reduce our carbon emissions, and we very quickly we needed to figure out a solution. And the solution that really worked to reduce our carbon emissions was biodiesel.
Yeah.
And so we literally have been working on how are we going to get that biodiesel into our ships, whether it's our biodiesel or someone else's. And so we're seeing it there on the shipping or maritime front. We're seeing the rail, let alone everything else that we have from home heating oil and the over-the-road use of these products.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, we continue to always, when we are engaging with stakeholders, we always are talking about the benefits of biodiesel and renewable diesel as that immediate carbon reduction step that you can take today. We can wait for other technology to come online. You can look at your other impacts of your business and how you can decarbonize, but using a drop-in fuel like biodiesel and renewable diesel is that step you guys can take today to start help meeting those carbon reduction goals, whether they're coming from a legislative policy or a corporate policy. I think corporate policy is one of those things that we are really seeing driving interest in our fuels. Again, you mentioned rail and marine. Those seem to be really picking up conversations. I know when I'm working in different states on policy, the rail industry is a lot more engaged with us these days, which I'm really happy to hear, because I know that they're looking at our fuels as step that they can start making to start decarbonizing, and they're getting the pressure from their stakeholders, from their corporate folks, and so it's really starting to trickle down throughout the chain there of how can they become more conscious of their carbon output. And so we continue to have those opportunities. What are some of the other opportunities do you see for this industry going forward?
So I think the biggest opportunity is really to have the industry understand the best use of these fuels. Right now, I think it's a lot easier hurdle to get across when you're trying to move renewable diesel into the market, because it's so much like petroleum diesel. But there are areas that, the biodiesel in combination with renewable diesel is actually the best option. And so I think, really utilizing all this increased use of renewable diesel to pull along added use and demand for biodiesel is one of the biggest opportunities we have right now.
And we're seeing that a lot in California, right? That's where we're seeing a lot of the R80, B20 blends being sold. And so we know there's a lot of increase in renewable diesel going into California, but that's also bringing along opportunities for a biodiesel, because you mentioned the combination of the two is a pretty dang good fuel, right? Like the quality, the benefits you get from both fuels really complement each other well as far as a engine operation. So do you expect to see that happening in some of these other states that have policies set up to help support both biodiesel and renewable diesel?
I do. I think at the end of the day, the blend is a better product. And it depends on what kind of use it's going into. But ultimately, what makes sense should drive more biodiesel going into renewable diesel. And, it's really the combination that is the kind of the best product that you can put in front of the customer for specific uses.
Yeah, and so obviously we know about the great opportunities, the tremendous growth out there in our industry, but we know there are hurdles out there. I know we touched on policy a little bit already, but we know, federal policy has always been a big driver. We're seeing state policies now that are also helping drive this industry, but those policy initiatives also throw us hurdles and obstacles sometimes. And I know RFS, the volumes that were set by EPA were not something that this industry and our organization really thought was going to be helpful to continue to push this industry forward. We're seeing some similar issues in states like California, where we're having to combat things that are being thrown at us from time to time, and always have to try to explain what our industry is capable of. So we know those hurdles are out there. What are some of the other things that we need to be thinking about, talking about it as an industry, as we want to continue to see this industry move forward?
Yeah, clearly this is an industry that is heavily dependent on what the policies are. And so I think, not trying to just focus on policy, but we need to understand what the policies are going to be. Mm-hmm. And that's, right now we're looking at many things changing in 2025, but we don't have all the details.
Yeah.
And so here we sit in, really the second quarter of 2024. And, soon we will need to be making sales for 25, and we don't know what those policies, the details of those are going to be. So it makes it very difficult, to plan for the future, work with your customers, and make sure that both parties are being treated fair because of the unknown.
Yeah, and I think that obviously is something that probably lawmakers don't always think about. They're thinking of policy and getting reelected and things of that nature. And we have folks like you and others in the industry that are trying to make these plans months out on how they're going to be able to move their products, and knowing what the policies, what the rules are to the game, would really be helpful in understanding on how this is going to play out. And, that's one thing I know we're constantly talking to lawmakers in DC about, lawmakers on the state level, is these policies really are, they do send market signals, and, either your inaction or your ability to get things in place in a timely manner really has either positive or negative effects on this industry. And as we're trying to grow, we're seeing more interest in it. We have to have this understanding and knowledge of what the rules are going to be for us to continue to deliver. And I know that's a thing that I know you sit on the governing board here at Clean Fuels. I know that's one thing that we're always talking about with our board members who are, talking to policymakers either at home or in DC. And so it's a challenge. And we continue to always be, present in these conversations. I always routinely talk about how, and I know our federal team also will probably share this opinion, that you have to be present in these conversations with lawmakers and regulators, because if you're not, and their story's not being told, and they need to hear from us in order to help make their decisions. But I know that we wish they could move faster, understand the impacts that their lack of decisions have on this industry.
Well, it is. It's extremely critical that, we're putting the efforts forward to get in front of the policymakers and the agencies, USDA, EPA. It was a little surprising this last trip that we took to D.C., and we were out meeting with different people, how much focus they put on history of, what's been done in making their policies for the future. And I think one of the most difficult things about being in a new industry that's growing rapidly is you've got to take some chances and say, this is what we think's going to happen. So when we're setting policy up for the future, it's very critical. We're not just looking backwards, we're looking forwards. And I think that agencies, they all understand that. But when it comes down to setting the rules, they tend to gravitate more back to what's the history tell us.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a major change that we've got to somehow get these agencies to be focused more on kind of betting on the come rather than, being assured by what the past brought.
Yeah, I know, regulators and lawmakers can probably get, in their comfort zones a little bit and just trying to use that as an excuse or something like that. I don't know if that's the right word, but it is like, hey, we're here, we're now, like we're ready to go. Just give us the clear indications that our industry can get involved and help meet what you guys are trying to achieve, whether it's carbon reductions or whatever it is. Our industry is here to meet that. Just give us the clear signals, give us the guidelines, and we're going to perform, because we have been for the past 30 years. So just let us be able to do that, but help us, see that future. We can help you see that future. And so I know that's a lot of part of our conversations, but it's difficult from time to time.
It is, but I will say that Clean Fuels Alliance America has done a very good job in organizing the strategy going forward. There in D.C., there's just been tremendous communication, from people that are part of us and people that aren't, in setting up a strategy and making sure when we go to the legislators that they get a clear signal of what we need as an industry, and that is not very easy to do.
Yeah.
So I do really appreciate the efforts of Clean Fuels on that front.
Yeah, and I know we've talked a little bit about rail, marine, sustainable aviation fuel already today, but are those the only three industries that we really see a lot of potential in the future? Are there other, corporations? I know we mentioned Pepsi, but where do you see the biggest opportunities in the industry for us in the future? Is it getting more involved in rail? Is it the marine aspect of things? It seems like every day there's, another news story about someone wanting to use more sustainable aviation fuel. We've seen some policies on those, but in your mind, where do you think the most opportunity for our fuel is in the next 10, 15, 20 years?
Well, I think you just go back and you look at really what we're doing is we're offering an alternative to petroleum products. And so if we look at where petroleum products are being used, obviously marine, air, rail, over the road, those are going to be our near-term opportunities. But if you also look at all the other uses of petroleum products, whether it be manufacturing plastics, polymers, I think that's probably another frontier for renewable products that, really hasn't been tapped that much yet.
Okay.
And so just a tremendous upside there. But I think right now, here today, marine and rail are the next two, and soon after that, I would say the aviation fuel. If people might argue that's going to come quicker, but marine and rail are ready to go now.
They seem to be the best position for the right now. As you mentioned, sustainable aviation fuel. That's a lot of talk, a lot of research, a lot of work being done on that. But it seems like the here and now is those, because we are that drop-in replacement as we always could talk about. They can start using us today. I know some of them already are. So I do agree that those two are definitely positioned the best to really start taking advantage of our fuels right now.
No, and I don't want to make Paul Nazaro happy. So
I was going to mention him
I better
too.
mention home heating oil.
Yep.
Huge opportunity, almost 5 billion gallons out there in the Northeast. So that's another significant one.
I didn't want to get the email or the call from Paul Nazaro either. If we did not end the conversation without talking about the opportunities in the home heating oil market as well, because there is, and I know we've been doing a lot of work up there now, and I'm sure many of our listeners have seen the Donnie Wahlberg campaign that we've been working on with the United Soybean Board, which I think is just going fabulous. It's always telling when my wife will mention to me she saw a Donnie Wahlberg Twitter post or Instagram story, because I don't usually get on those too often. So it's always great when you have people outside your industry, outside your colleagues telling you, hey, I saw that article, I saw that Donnie Wahlberg post. So we know we're doing a lot of great work on the home heating oil side of things up there in the Northeast. No,
that's great. I think that's the key. We just got to get the word in front of more people, and then the facts will just pull it through.
Yep. Well, I know we mentioned it earlier as we introduced you, but you're on the Clean Fuels governing board. How long have you been serving on our governing board?
The past 3 years.
Past 3 years. And what have you enjoyed most about being on the board?
I think I kind of mentioned it earlier, but clearly the strategy that is in the thought process that's put into affecting, really policy has been just very enlightening for me. I don't come from that type of background. It's really interesting what works, and as you mentioned earlier, it's getting in front of those people continuously.
Yeah.
And that is so critical, and I probably didn't hold the value on that 3 years ago that I hold today.
Yeah.
The other thing is just really working with other industry leaders in the biodiesel, renewable diesel, SAF industry. It's been a really neat opportunity to get to know those people on a different level where it's not a customer supplier relationship. It's more building friendships and, kind of letting your guard down and really talking about what we can do better as an industry. So really have enjoyed, spending the time with all the board members.
Well, I know your voice and your reason has really been, appreciated by other board members. And I've been able now to sit on some of these conversations with the governing board. I just love being a fly on the wall to hear all the different perspectives, because it is remarkable when you're in that room and you have governing board members who have come from the ag background. We have others who come from the business background, and just seeing and both on the biodiesel, renewable diesel, SAF side. So it's really interesting to see the conversations evolve amongst all these different backgrounds into how do we promote this industry and move it forward. And I think that's a really key piece. And moving forward is continue to make sure we're telling that story. I know Doug Whitehead always loves to talk about telling the story. And so having all those folks leading this organization, yourself included, is really, I know, helpful to us as well, having those perspectives leading us, as we address the challenges going forward.
No, I think, the makeup of the board really sets us up to get a diverse amount of input. And it's easy to always think that, hey, this is a pretty clear black and white answer until you sit there with the other board members and you hear very different perspectives. Yep. And I think that's a very healthy thing for the industry.
Yeah, you're like, I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah.
It really does get you thinking. But, so it's been great having you on today. I know we mentioned that you are retiring after several years with Seaboard. What are some of the big plans you have planned for yourself and your family on your retirement?
Well, family is the number one thing. I've been very dedicated to my career. Seaboard has just given me a tremendous opportunity. Clean Fuels has given me a great opportunity. It's taken a lot of time, and I'm going to shift that time to spending it more with family. But not all just play. My kids have different businesses that I would like to help out with, and my wife and I also have some things that she's been working on that I can now maybe take some of her load off, and we can do together. So I really look forward to that. And then obviously we've got the grandkids. We've got 2 right now, and another one on the way. So
nice, congratulations!
It's be a lot of fun.
That's great. And so as you transition now off the board, we know Seaboard has been a great partner, members of ours for many years. What is Seaboard's role going to be moving forward with Clean Fuels?
Yeah, so I'm pleased to announce that Peter Rosenthal, who will be the new president and CEO, will become the new board member. Okay, and he will take a different board position, but he will be active on that, along with Bryant Brown will continue to be a very active member in Clean Fuels. But I do want to mention that Peter, we're very excited about having him as the new president and CEO. He comes from a long history of more of the petroleum industry, but he's got an excellent record of very safe and reliable production, which we can utilize a lot of his past experiences in helping us to go to the next level in our safe and reliable production at all of our plants.
Yeah, that seems like a great background to have as someone on our board is is having that petroleum background. As we talked a lot today, we're seeing a lot more of that interaction of our industry with petroleum, and so having someone of Peter's background is going to be really helpful for us as an industry and as a board as we continue to make these decisions and plot the course forward.
No, I think he'll continue to increase the diversity of the input you're getting when you have challenges in front of the board.
That's great, and well earned. I know your dedication to this industry. I mean, I haven't come across anyone who hasn't just had the utmost respect for you and what you've done for us. So I know on behalf of Clean Fuels, Donnell, Doug, all the team here, we really appreciate all the dedication and work that you've put into helping us move forward. And so it's a little bittersweet that you're leaving us, but we know you're going to be around when we need you. If we have questions, but we really wish you the best in your retirement and spending that time with family and on doing some of those other things that you mentioned. So, thanks again for being with us today. Any last words? I want to give you the last opportunity to talk.
No, Jeff, thank you. And it's been great working with the people in this industry. There's a lot of great people. But if it wasn't for, really the efforts of, the National Biodiesel Board, Clean Fuels, I don't know that this industry would have given me the opportunity that I've had in my career. And so for that, I just want to thank everyone that's been involved over the years. And, what a great industry to be associated with. So thank you.
Thank you. I think that's going to be a wrap here. Until next time, be sure to like, subscribe, and share the Better, Cleaner Now podcast, as we will be having more exciting guests on in the future.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. To catch all the latest from Clean Fuels Alliance America, follow us at cleanfuels.org. The Better, Cleaner Now podcast is a production of Clean Fuels Alliance America. That's all for us. Now it's your turn to be better, cleaner now.